Lux your way with the Lux Cravings boxes from Taco Bell. There's the classic $5 box, the indulgent $7 box, and a whole new obsession in the $9 box, the Flamin' Hot Grilled Cheese Burrito. Try the Lux Cravings boxes at Taco Bell today.
Hey Bronco Nation, this is Boise State football wide receiver Ben Ford. I've had to face some setbacks on the field this past season, but toughness isn't about staying down. It's about getting back up. I am proud to represent Lithia Ford of Boise, where you can find the largest selection of Ford trucks that are built tough and, like me, handle the hits and keep pushing forward. Come check out the incredible inventory and competitive pricing at Lithia Ford of Boise. And when you buy here, you're not just getting a truck, you're supporting Boise State athletics and Lithia Ford NIL partnerships. Come see us at Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho.
Find your sun with Sun Cruiser Vodka Iced Tea. Made with real iced tea and real vodka. Cold, refreshing, and made for moments like these all year long. Let the good times cruise with Sun Cruiser.
As sports fans, we may cheer for different teams, but there's one thing that we can all agree on. We want the game to be big. And with 3 levels, 30 cabanas, a 143-foot screen, 6 clean pools, and endless cold drinks, it doesn't get any bigger or any better than Stadium Swim in Las Vegas. All sports, all seasons. It's more than a pool deck. Stadium Swim. It's the only thing like it in the world.
The final buzzer has sounded on another night of basketball out west. And it's time to break down the action with Tom Moser on Another Night Out West, presented by Circus Sports. Heading to Las Vegas for a guys' weekend or to watch the Pac-12 or Mountain West basketball tournaments? Make sure to stay at Circa Las Vegas and watch all the action at Stadium Swim, where the sports are on 365 days a year. While you're there, check out the world's largest sports book and make sure to eat at Barry's Prime Steakhouse. Book your reservations today at circalasvegas.com. Another Night Out West features interviews, analysis, opinions, and more from the Pac-12, the Mountain West, the WCC, and beyond. If it's happening out west, we're talking about it on Another Night Out West. Subscribe on YouTube and don't miss a show at youtube.com/@Another Night Out West. Did your team just get a big win? How about a bad loss? Come discuss it with us. Send us a comment or question in the ICCU YouTube chat or leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/BNN.
Like you said, he's in big moments, ton of experience.
Amazing arena. We have the altitude. Like you said, we have.
Now let's go to the Sun Cruiser Studios and join Coach Tom Moser for Another Night Out West on Bronco Nation News.
All right, here we are. What's up, everybody? Another night out west, Sunday, August the 23rd. That means that 1 week from tonight will be our final August episode. Start rolling into September here. You can count the days, count the weeks for sure before practice, and soon enough before game action. So my name's Tom Moser. Thank you for being here on Another Night Out West. Lots to talk about. As I tweeted out, as I sent out on the socials, last month and a half-ish, had a great amount of fun with the coaches' interviews. BJ and I did 10 of them, recorded a couple of them when we showed them on here live. The last few, we did them all in the month of July and just kind of staggered them out. And so that was our content for that period when, in theory, every other year, usually in college basketball, there's not a lot to talk about, right? So figured that would give us a nice little buffer there before things heated up again. And it was great. Those were really enjoyable. Most of the work, however, on those episodes were done when BJ and I recorded, right? So these live Sunday night shows then were basically 80%, give or take, of just those conversations, which were, again, incredible, especially if you're a fan of one of those teams or a fan of all of the teams like I am. And for me to be able to talk to those coaches, incredible, invaluable. They're all different. They all, work and operate in different ways. They all focus on different things. Their personalities come through when you interview them, and their teams usually, like all coaches are, good or bad, are an extension of their personalities out on the floor. So for me to get to talk to 10 of these guys that are coaching at a high level in Division I hoops is incredible. I love it, right? But again, that leaves 15-ish, 20% of the episode for me to just kind of talk about the two teams that we featured in those given episodes on those nights. And so there wasn't a lot else for me to do. So look, again, I enjoyed the heck out of those, but I will enjoy this one because there's plenty of stuff to get to. Let's hit a couple other things first. Sponsors. Got Mr. Cruiser here, Sun Cruiser. Always a good time for Sun Cruiser, but certainly now summer's winding down, few weeks left. Get yourself some Sun Cruiser, different flavors, whatever your taste is. Go grab yourself some Sun Cruiser. They're all over the place. I said that last week. They're certainly all over the place. Circa Sports. This is really, their time of year is, again, summer for the stadium swim, for the pool. But now they always get a lot of publicity for their Circa Survivor contest, which I guess NFL maybe 2-ish weeks away. So you have a little bit of time. Hit up Circa if you're interested in that. And when you head out to Vegas, get out to Circa, visit them, outdoor pool, indoor, sportsbook, mobile betting, all your needs when you head out to Vegas. Bottom, subscribe, says it right now. The timing always kind of works out. Subscribe to Another Night Out West on YouTube at www.youtube.com/@AnotherNightOutWest. Get a few of those every week, every time we do an episode. I had a few more last week. Let's aim for a few more this week, right? If you're not subscribed, as you're watching right now, please go do so, or at any point, all right? Again, look, well aware at this time of year, many of the viewers are coming in after the fact, not live, which is, I do the same thing. As I said, I listen to plenty of things and shows and pods, and I listen to them during the week and not when they're live. And, that's what's good about these things. You can go back and watch, listen whenever you want. Doesn't have to be live. And as I said, certainly during the off season when there's no game action to review. This news that I'm going to talk about tonight, that's gone on for a while now. That's, been in all the stuff that's been talked about, can be discussed at any point, right? And so, whenever you're watching, if you're here now, got a couple right now in the comments. David, good morning. I don't know if maybe you're in Australia or Japan in the Far East, but good morning to you where you are. Good evening to you folks out in the Mountain Time Zone. Mark is in East Idaho. Welcome, Mark. What happened to Genty? Did something happen tonight? Or was there it's Sunday. I guess there's a game tonight. I don't know. Did something happen to Genty? I don't know, Mark. Let me know. Okay. Anyway, so let's as I said, plenty of stuff to talk about, right? This was kind of like in April and May when I don't want to use the word dreading, but worried about some episodes having stuff to talk about. That will not be the case tonight. As I had said last week, I was planning on rolling out over the next few weeks, talking about teams' schedules, their full schedules, because we have a handful of them right now that have been put out, right? And so I wanted to talk about a few of those. And, let me give an example here. We've talked to those 10 coaches. So those 10 programs had a whole episode, half of an episode devoted to them, right? Between the coach, some talk, if BJ was on, between BJ and I, before we showed the interview, before we did the interview, afterwards. So a good 30 to 40 minutes on each of those 10 teams. Now, again, several teams were not showcased or highlighted for various reasons. I'm not going to go into the specific details of those reasons, but you can, put two and two together with some of them and figure it out yourself or ask around, whatever. Point being, Nevada, as an example, because we did not get Coach Alford on, has not been a lot of Nevada discussed on here in the last 2 months. So I wanted, and their schedule is out, right? I wanted to talk about that here tonight, figuring, all right, a lot of I thought that was the case, Bob, because, on Twitter, as I was getting ready for the episode, I saw his name show up over there on the side of the screen where it says I don't know what's happening or something, trending, I guess it is, right? And so usually, I won't say usually, sometimes that's not a good thing, right? Like, I don't know that he'd be trending for scoring 3 touchdowns in a preseason game. So hopefully he's all right. I'm sure Boise fans are hoping that as well. So let's hope that, nobody wants anybody to get injured, especially in a preseason game. So let's hope that that Gentee's okay and it's not too serious. Anyway, but I just don't know if I'm going to get to any of the schedules tonight. And that's fine, because we'll get to them eventually. And as more and more get added, that's cool. We'll talk about the others as well. But there's just so many things to talk about, okay? Unless you're hiding under a rock and you're not paying attention to anything, which I doubt, because if that was the case, you probably would not be in here, right? Like you're here either now live Sunday night or during the week because you enjoy and you're into college hoops, which means you're likely paying attention to it during the week and all the other stuff that's coming out, news going around, all that stuff, right? So you probably are on top of most of these things. But man, I got a list here, just like as if it was, freaking April and the whole transfer portal was open. So there's many topics to discuss. I'm going to hit them all. If, the one thing about the coaches interviews episodes is that it's difficult to work in commentary questions from the viewers, right? Because we're playing the interview, we're talking to the coaches, and there's just not as much time. And again, I know many of you are not watching live, and that kind of depletes the potential for commentary. But if you have comments or questions on the stuff I want to talk about, I love to get feedback, right? Even if it's later on a tweet or whatever it might be, okay? Because there's a lot, like I said, there's plenty of stuff going on, and there's things that I want to kind of I've been sitting on several of these thoughts for more than a week now, right? And I have really been looking forward to this episode where I can just kind of go on my occasional rant or tangent, if you will, about something. So I guess let's just start first with it's in my tweet, right? That the headline about the show, commenting on the circus that is college sports right now. Okay. And I said college sports because it's certainly not immune to isolated to college hoops. And to be honest, football is probably more of a guilty party than hoops is. It may get worse as our season gets closer. Ours is not quite there yet. Theirs is literally right around the corner, right? I guess there's a handful of games coming up this Saturday. So we're 6 days away from the start of Division I college football. Actually, like the FCS, the old 1AA, those guys start on Thursday. So we're 4 days away from Division I football, 6 days away from FBS top level football, right? And there are still issues and unclarity going on throughout the sport. Okay. you can't go a day without seeing something, a report or a tweet or news article or whatever about some type of like just ridiculous story that 10 years ago you just would not have believed, right? And so you have, and again, this is football, but it probably will bleed its way into college hoops. It has a little bit already, but the football examples that are happening are where you have players who graduated, right? Their eligibility should be done. They get drafted or sign as undrafted free agents with teams to go to camp to try to make NFL squads. Okay. And then through whatever system or however it plays out, they either know they're not going to make the team, they are maybe going to make the practice squad or whatever other different levels they have. And they realize, you know what? Like, I don't want to do that. And why don't you cut me so I can go back and play in college where I can get an NIL deal? Now, how any college football program still has NIL dollars, that's a problem first, right? Okay. Like, I get it. You can always have roster spots, probably. Okay. I would think. I'm sure there's a cap. I think there's a cap on how many guys you can have that travel, right? I don't think, and there's obviously a scholarship limit. Okay. But I don't think there's any like limit on how many guys you can have on your roster. So you can always like finagle the rules. So this, let's just say Joe Public, right? Because I just saw a tweet about it before I came on here a little bit ago. Joe Public was playing for a team in the preseason. I think he played at Ole Miss last year. Probably going to get cut, whatever, at some point. So he basically is like telling them to cut him now so he can come back and play for LSU. Well, LSU, I'm going to assume they don't have any scholarships left because like Lane Kiffin, no college coach is going to leave a scholarship available at the end of August when you're a week from games. So all your scholarships are gone. Okay. Now I guess you can always find money to give the guy for NIL, right? Not what it was made for 5 years ago, NIL, but yeah, they'll find somebody to give him money. And so he doesn't need a scholarship because they'll just give you NIL money and they'll say, hey, look, we're not going to put you on scholarship because I don't have any left, but we'll give you NIL money. And so the other thing is, and then some other player won't be able to travel when they go on road games, right? Because you can only take, I don't know what it is, 85, give or take. You can only take so many. And so, sorry, guy who's busted his ass for 6 months in the weight room and doing everything and was going to travel. You're not going to travel now because we just brought a former pro back, a week before the season started, who's done nothing with our program ever, but he's a mercenary and he can help us. Okay. But the other thing is, this is college, right? So like they have to take class. They have to take classes, right? If they go to class, you're a student athlete. So like, are we going to write that off? That's people that know that that's been a joke for a long time at most schools. There are some schools that take it seriously, right? Stanford, I'm sure, Vanderbilt, Northwestern, Duke. There's schools that take it seriously. Okay. But most of them do not. We all know that. These guys aren't going to class 15 hours a week. Are you kidding? But now it's like right out there in front of somebody. This dude is going to come from Ole Miss to LSU, never been there before. They probably started classes already, if not maybe tomorrow. And he's going to show up on campus this week and be eligible to play. Okay. So like that is an absolute mockery. I have nothing against LSU. I don't care about whatever, right? It's going to happen at multiple places, not just this guy. The issue is the whole point of this is that the whole thing is out of control, okay? Because the other issue largely are the nonstop lawsuits, temporary restraining orders, stays, injunctions, all the things that just like compound and like overlap one another. And they're so damn confusing. Like one overrules one supersedes another. I can't even keep track of the verbiage in the messages and the tweets anymore. Okay. I'm not a lawyer. I like to argue and debate. So I might have made a decent one if I had the patience to whatever, but I don't. I can figure some stuff out, but man, like this is confusing beyond belief, besides the fact that it's a joke. Okay. And you know, what really got me thinking about this was, I think a couple weeks ago it was, I'm a big Little League guy, right? The Little League's going on. Growing up in Pennsylvania, I was about 2 hours from Williamsport. Went up there a couple times 15-ish years ago before it completely got commercialized and blew up into the monster that it is now. Went up with, you know, buddies to watch and take in this atmosphere and all the stuff up there. So I follow it, right? You know, just because there's nothing else going on. I enjoy it, whatever. There was a team in Oklahoma, Tulsa, that was playing in the regionals in Texas. And I guess there were rumors or whispers or whatever about them having an ineligible player or something, okay? Cheating, basically. And so in this regional tournament to get to Williamsport, a couple teams filed a protest and they were found guilty or however, and they were kicked out of the tournament, right? And so Little League said, hey, you know, you're out. The team Y and team X are now playing for the championship. Tulsa is gone. So Tulsa then, you know, they've been paying attention to college sports, right? What do? You find a judge that will grant you a stay or a temporary, whatever the hell it is, right? And they did at like midnight the night before, okay? So just now, ultimately, which anybody should be able to figure out here, a judge can't like force you to play a game. Like the Texas team had won and was declared champions. They were going to win and go to Williamsport. And they were like, we're not playing this game. You know, the judge said, oh, you can't prevent this team from playing. You got to show up and play tomorrow against this Tulsa team. Of course, it was a judge from Oklahoma or somewhere where they probably knew somebody on the board of the team, right? Like it's all nonsense. And so, you know, but you can't make a team show up. You can't physically make a team show up and play. And Little League had the Texas teams back because they had kicked Oklahoma out in the first place. But the whole thing just symbolized, it's like, you know, we cheated, but we'll find a judge that'll back us up and grant us a temporary restraining order so we can play anyway, even though we cheated. And I saw that and it was like, you know, so here's the thing. Okay. And I know I you know, this has nothing to do with basketball, but it does, because the whole thing, Pizza Man, usually have my back, whole thing out of control. So here's the thing. Okay. I'm a history teacher, right? I teach history, largely history classes, but one of the disciplines that I will also teach every other unit or module or so is government. Okay. Now, in our First Amendment, as I teach, we have these 5 freedoms, which includes, we all know freedom of speech, right? This is your history lesson for today. One of the other ones that people know is freedom of religion. Tucked in there somewhere, okay, in the fine print, probably written by Thomas Jefferson, there's a clause that maybe you guys have heard of, okay? It's known as separation of church and state. Separation of church and state. Okay, what does that mean? It means that the government, aka the state, right, our government, has and can have zero impact, input, say, anything when it comes to religion, church. Okay, separation of church and state. State equals the government, church equals religion. Okay, we have freedom of religion in this country. Okay? We take it for granted, but we have freedom of religion. You can practice any religion you want or no religion. You don't have to practice. You can practice any religion. You can practice multiple, whatever you want. But the government can't do a damn thing about it, no matter what they might want to do or not. They just stay out of it. Stay away. Focus on other things. You don't need to get involved in this. And it is damn time that we have separation of state and sport, or sport and state. Okay. I wish I had a bigger platform like some of these, loudmouth guys on ESPN or Fox Sports or wherever they are. Okay. To get this out there. Separation of state and sport, or sport and state. I have to figure out which way I like it better. But that is what we need. We don't need the government meddling in any of this. And what that will do is eliminate all of this court nonsense. Okay? Eliminate all of it. There is a governing body. In theory, there is, the NCAA, right? They govern the sports under their purview. Okay? Whatever sport, 30 sports they have, however many they have, they govern those sports. Okay? Nobody else. No lawyers, no government, no nothing. The NCAA makes the rules. Okay? We're not dealing with any lawsuits. The NCAA makes the rules. And then the conferences within the NCAA makes their rules, and so on and so forth. Okay? You don't like the rules, you don't want to follow the rules, you get punished. That's it. No injunctions, no lawsuits, no rulings, no whatever. Because the NCAA for a while had no backbone, and they'd give in to these lawsuits, and now they're losing left and right. I mean, they did kind of win one the other day, I guess, and so it's confusing beyond belief. But we don't need this in sport. We don't need it. It's a joke. It's made the whole thing a mockery. It's embarrassing. I said it a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I don't even remember anymore. I wish I could just, I don't wish I could, because I enjoy talking about this, right? But just teleport me to November 2nd, maybe the week before. I guess I can't even say that because the rosters will probably change. Get me to when the games are being played, and let's talk about the guys playing on the floor, okay? But since we have 2+ months until games, we're going to talk about this stuff. But it's embarrassing. It's a joke. It's embarrassing. It really is. I'm ashamed for like the sport of college the entity of college athletics. It's really a shame what's happened. Okay, I guess it was only a matter of time. But man, this is brutal. This is brutal. It's bad. It's a joke. And now you have stays in some states lawsuits, but not others. So players who filed injunctions in Colorado are no longer eligible. But if you filed it in California, you are. But maybe if you filed it in another state, you're eligible, but you can't transfer. You have to stay at the school you're. It's just like, how can you have all of these different rules going on? It's absolutely embarrassing, ridiculous, all of it. Yeah, I'll get to Dent in a minute, Steve. Definitely mention Dent. Pizza, you are correct. Cowherd, he's just a big mouth guy. Tell Cowherd about. I mean, he doesn't care. Those guys, and that's the problem. Like most of these networks and these guys, they don't really care about college sports. They want to talk about the Cowboys and the Lakers and LeBron and the Yankees and whatever. Okay. They don't really pay much attention to college sports unless there's something big going on. Okay. And to be honest, as much as I'm an anti-pro sports guy and a pro-college sports guy, I can't say I blame him at this point because, I mean, this is just brutal. It's brutal. It's far worse. I remember about less than 2 years ago when the train first started to go off the rails with player just movement, right? With the turnover on the rosters and everybody just basically moving wherever they wanted without penalty for multiple years in a row. Before like 2 seasons ago. And I remember having conversations with on my pod, I wasn't doing the show yet, but on my pod with guys like Kevin Sweeney, Matt Cox, guys that are well glued in to what's going on around the sport, neutral people. And they, we all talked about it on air and off air. Like this thing, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And now here we are a couple years later. It's an absolute disgrace. Okay. So Mark brings up something that's often discussed. This will continue until student athletes no longer exist and are considered simply employees. So Mark, quickly, because here's one of those things where I kind of like tune my brain out a little bit. And I do want to get to some other stuff then, because there's plenty of other things to talk about. So I will wrap this up in a couple minutes, but it's a big deal. Like overall, like it's just consuming because half of the things I'm going to talk about later are an offshoot of this. But Mark, what if they're not student athletes? Forget about the class piece of it, because that's a joke anyway. What will happen if they're considered employees? Then what? You're saying because they will then have to sign contracts and they can't like move around, or what's the thing that's going to make it change if that would happen? Because they could just sign 1-year contracts and keep bouncing around. Like this is supposed to be like, I don't know. Like this basically resembles AAU now, okay? Or like an adult league where you just go play where you want and, teams pick up ringers and pay for the best. Okay. Anyway, I'll see what Mark says, because I do think there's truth to what Mark's saying. I just want to see like what his thought is about why that would happen. Okay. So I'm sure like I'll have more on that later. I separation of sport and state. Collective bargaining, Mark says. Collective bargaining. Yeah. All right. I guess. I mean, I don't know if who knows? Who knows? Separation of sport and state. That's the key takeaway here. Okay. For me. I mean, of course, that's not going to go anywhere, but I'll be barking about that. Okay. Now I want to just quickly talk about, now this is old news, but again, this is since I have been on really this happened maybe a week or two ago. The settlement between the two conferences, between the Mountain West and the Pac-12 was finally like over. Okay. With the exception of like the payments made and all that stuff. Okay. So we don't really have all the details. Most of the stuff came out, and it seems as though the Mountain West got the shorter end of the stick, right? And the Pac-12 seems to have gotten the better end of it. I think, and I can understand why Mountain West fans would be like, well, what the heck? The contract said this, and, we expected this. But, if you were being honest, those things never work out the way you think they're gonna, like full allotment of whatever. It just doesn't work that way. Okay. Now I don't know any of the details about it, why the Mountain West settled, why they didn't, who knows why they got what they got. I think like the main thing here is this. Okay. Like I get it. There's massive animosity now between the fan bases of these programs, but I'm really hopeful that like that will just start to go away like soon, because I'll tell you what, like fans of the ACC and the SEC, they don't give a damn about each other. Okay. Unless they're like Clemson and South Carolina, or Georgia and Georgia Tech, or whoever it might be, right? Louisville, Kentucky, whatever it is, right? Like, yeah, fine. But as a whole, like, worry about your program and your conference. Okay. Yes, the schools in the Pac-12 are in a better situation. We all know that. Okay. And I guess I'm just speaking to a few of like the trolls who on both sides that insist on getting into it. Like, worry about your own program and your own conference. Okay. Like, neither one of you are in a great spot right now. Like, be honest. Okay. As I probably said this before, but it's been a while and I just get like annoyed reading stuff on here. Okay. Yes, Pac-12 fans should feel better. The fans of programs that left the Mountain West and went to the Pac-12 should feel a little bit better, maybe a little bit more than a little bit better. But, you struggle to finalize your conference. You didn't for football. And so, like, let's not act like the everything's all roses and sunshine and whatever, right? Because it's not. So we still don't know the terms of your media deal. Yeah, is it going to be better than Mount West? 100%. Everybody knows that. Okay. But just who cares? Like, you shouldn't be, don't worry about the Mount West. And Mount West fans, like, stop worrying about the Pac-12. You need to coexist through, as we've talked about, scheduling things in here. A lot of them in basketball, fantastic. Football, I don't even know if there's probably not, because there's not as many games needed to schedule. But like, just that, again, I don't want to have that all year where it's, we're comparing, and it's just, I'm sure it'll happen in football after week 1 or whatever, when, the Mount West teams are 5 games, they lost 5 games in a non-con, and the Pac-12 only lost 3 games. And it's just like, just worry about your own program and your own stuff. Okay. Steve says revenue share already makes them employees. The schools just don't want to admit it. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I guess, again, this is where I just don't care to go down that and expand my brain to think about that stuff. Pizza Man says it reminds me of an industrial league softball team made up with. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing. Okay, let's get to some of the other news here. Again, a lot of this stuff ties in with a lot of the news this week, with the injunctions and the rulings, and everybody's going to just play. Okay. I guess I'll say one other thing first that's not player related, because I used to tweet out about this when he would do it. Now I just stopped because I kind of feel bad for the guy. But Lenardi had his first bracketology for the year. And I had to look through it twice to make sure that I was right in what I saw. And I was correct. He has one Pac-12 team and one Mountain West team, and no at-larges for either conference. He had nobody in the first 4 out. He had Utah State in the next 4 out. So this is also with an expanded 76-team field. So among the first 80 teams, now, yes, there's 15 to 20 of those that are, automatic bids that to the lower conferences. I get that. Yes. But an 80 bid, 76 plus 4, 80 bids. And he's got 0 at-larges for either conference. Now that's pretty bold. I mean, we all know what it is, right? Like, the guy's a clown. He mailed it in. He's earned the right to mail it in. He busted his butt for 10, 15 years. He grew this thing. He invented this thing. He made it what it is. Okay. Now he just cashing checks and basically probably punching stuff into Chat GPT or having AI do stuff for him. Because the network that he works for that puts this stuff out has 0 affiliation to either of the conferences. So he has no incentive to kind of push for them. But man, is like he had New Mexico, I think, is a 13 seed, and Gonzaga, I think they were like a 4. The Zags were a 4. But that was pretty shocking to see. Of course, like I don't. That's not going to be the case. All right. I think it's certainly possible, especially with some of the news this week that I'll talk about here in a second, that not possible. It's likely that the Mountain West, I wouldn't say gets a bid, but it's very likely that they're in the mix for a second bid. And I'd be stunned if the Pac-12 doesn't get 2. Stunned. Obviously, I think they have a pretty decent chance to get 3. Okay. I think more than that is pushing it, right? Like, if I had to bet right now, I would say they get 3. Okay. If I had to bet, I would say the Mountain West gets 1, but it's certainly a lot higher than it was the chance of them getting 2, or a lot higher than they were in April and May and June. Okay. So let's talk about some of these player decisions and movement, I guess, that have happened in the last weekish. Okay. I think I have 4 or 5 of them written down here. I guess first we'll talk about the one that really impacts us the least. And Steve kind of brought that up already. And that's Donovan Dent heading to LSU. So, I mean, look, I know Lobo fans thought that there was a chance that Dent would want to come back. I mean, maybe there was. And I think, Jeff Grammer said it pretty well. Was there going to be a hometown discount from Dent's perspective? 100%. He would have. Yeah, I'm just going to throw stupid numbers out there. I know these aren't accurate, so don't jump down my throat. But if LSU was going to offer Dent 1.5. Dent would have stayed at New Mexico for $1 million probably. Okay, that's my read in the situation. Okay, something like that. Okay, so he did want to stay, but once the schools like Texas Tech and LSU get involved that have like endless money, there's just no chance. Like even Gonzaga got like squashed, like overwhelmed in this. Okay. And like, they're not used to that. Okay. So like New Mexico, they didn't have a chance once these other schools got involved. It just is where we are. And that's why, and Gonzaga is a national program. Okay. They're a national program, but that's why we say that it's like the Big Two, the SEC and the Big Ten, and then everybody else. All right. Obviously, the Big 12 is very good in hoops, and Texas Tech lately has been spending like an SEC team, not a Big 12 team. Okay, that's why they kind of made themselves into a football juggernaut, I guess, and really basketball too. You know, the Toppin injury last year really hurt, but they've been spending. Okay, but man, it's just, you know, you can't do anything about it. Can't do anything about it. Okay, if you're New Mexico, if you're Gonzaga, right? The money's gotten too out of control, and for a guy like Dent, who, don't forget, he retired 4 months ago. He retired. He was done because he probably doesn't want to go lounge and move around Europe or the G League or whatever it is. He retired. So he's going to make multi-million dollars this year to play another year. So like, nobody should begrudge him. I don't think anybody does. But it's just like there was not a chance once the big money schools got involved. The last thing, and this was a news item of today before I get to the other players, I promise I'm getting there next, is Brandon Mason Jr. I never talk about recruiting on here for obvious reasons, okay? And if they're not obvious, I'll get to the reasons why in a second. But Brandon Mason Jr., I guess his father played for New Mexico. Grammer knows the family, so he did a little video with the family today where Mason made his choice, and he had 5 finalists. 3 of them were schools prominently discussed on here: New Mexico, hometown team, Boise, and GCU, Grand Canyon. Okay. The 4th, I don't even know who the 4th was. I don't remember who the 4th was. Probably just a token school to throw in there. So he had 5. And then the 5th is the one that he ultimately chose, which was Xavier, not coincidentally coached by Richard Pitino. So I'm sure that Richard built that relationship before he left Albuquerque when he was coaching there. Mason is a top 100 recruit. There's not a lot of them that come from New Mexico. And so, as Jeff kind of said, he and I watched it, well-spoken young man, seems to be raised right by his family, nice young man, 5-minute 10-minute clip that Jeff put on the socials. And Jeff said, look, the kid wants to go out away from home and show that kids from New Mexico can compete and play, as he said, on the big time. And I know some people didn't really like that because, who's Xavier? New Mexico is better than Xavier last year. And, I don't know this year either, right? But if we know one thing about Richard, it's that he can recruit and bring players in. And so he got one here. Now, the kid will be a senior this year. So, look, and this is why I don't talk about recruiting. I'd say basically there's no chance that the young man it finishes his career with Richard at Xavier, right? Because that's 5 years from now. Richard would have to be at Xavier for 5 more years, and the young man would have to play for 4, or you could play for 5, right, with the new rules at Xavier. And it's nothing against Brandon Mason Jr. Nobody does it anymore, right? Nobody. So why is this kid going to be any different? So if you're a New Mexico fan and you're bummed out, like, just wait a year or two and he'll be playing for the Lobos in 2 years, right? I mean, I'd probably, that would be an even money bet that he'll play for New Mexico in 2 or 3 years, right? And a larger, far bigger than even money that he does not stay at Xavier for 4 years. Okay, I could be wrong. Maybe he's an exception, and it's nothing against him because, again, I think he seemed – I've watched enough commitment videos or things that are cringeworthy where these guys obviously are not being given, like, the best advice, and this one was done well. So I'm nothing about the situation. It's just the way that college sports are today. Why would you think that this guy's going to last there for 5 years? Why would we think Richard's going to last at Xavier for 5 more years? Because I'll tell you what, if Xavier has another year or two, like they just had this past season, Richard won't be at Xavier for 5 more years. I mean, he probably hopes it's because he trades up and goes somewhere else, but he better win more than he did this past season. They had a pretty poor year. So we'll see what comes up this year. But anyway, I just wanted to get that out there because I saw that. That was our schools between GCU, New Mexico, and Boise were 3 of the Final 4. And, if we can't get him. But again, he'll be here before you know it. Not a big deal. Okay, now the dudes who are going to be here. Let's talk about the first one that broke, and that was Jaden Henley back to GCU. Now, I'm pretty sure that this was kind of like a forced hand commitment from one of those states where they said, well, you have another year, but you can't transfer because you didn't enter the transfer portal. Well, they didn't enter the transfer portal because they're out of eligibility. Now they're being given a magical free year. And I like it. It's good. Okay. Like, go play where you played before. And that will work for GCU. He averaged almost 20 a game, an all-conference performer. They already had the best roster in the conference. I know New Mexico fans don't want to hear it, and there were several that got upset, not just at my tweet about it, but I read plenty of others from national people who were raving over GCU about this acquisition, about their potential, about their status as the favorite in the conference. And there were quite a number of Lobo backers who took issue with that. Now, look, I'm all for supporting your team, okay? But I'm here to tell you, you do not have a better roster than GCU, okay? I don't think you did before they added Henley, okay? Now that they've added Henley, there is no chance that you have a better roster. Now, does that mean that they will finish ahead of you? Of course not. Of course not, right? A lot of things, will impact that, okay? Health, coaching, luck, plenty of other things, intangibles. So, but I'm telling you that in the preseason poll, GCU will be number 1, maybe unanimous, maybe not, but they'll be number 1. Betting wise, they will be the favorite. And it's not a knock. It's not a knock on New Mexico. It just is what it is. Okay. So you don't need to get upset if you're a Lobo fan. You have to take it personal. Yes, you beat the Lopes twice last year. You did. Okay. They are far, far improved. The Lobos might be as well. And that's why I said that the chance for a 2-bid Mountain West is there. they have to take care of business, both programs in the non-con and in conference play, but the chance is there. But man, GCU looks really solid right now. Okay, they do. That there's just, I don't know. On paper, they have it. How will they mesh? You always have to worry about this stuff. Here comes Henley. The team just went to Canada and played 2 games. They've been practicing and working out for a couple months. I mean, I guess 3 guys on the team from last year know him: Makai Williams, Demerol, the big guy, and Shaw, who was injured. The rest are all newcomers who have been there for the last 4 or 5 months. Are they going to be okay with, a couple of these guys now losing minutes? I mean, Henley's going to come in. He's going to play 30 minutes a game, you would think, right? I mean, 28 minutes. So that's 28 minutes that 2 or 3 guys are going to, 3 guys are going to lose 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes each, or 4 guys going to lose some type of minutes. How, does that upset the apple cart a little bit? So that is a factor. We'll see. But man, it raises the ceiling of the Lopes, okay? Because there were several of those national guys who said, borderline top 25, top 5 non-power 4. Well, I guess power 5 because we're counting the Big East. But, look, like they're not better than Gonzaga, although the Zags now dealt another blow by not getting Dent. And I think the Colorado injunction that was overruled and stayed and whatever, that now has those guys ineligible for now. You will get more lawsuits, and I'm sure they'll be eligible. But the Colorado lawsuit that now has those guys temporarily ineligible included only 1 player from the Mountain West or the Pac-12, and that was one of the guards that went to Gonzaga in the last month or so. Now, he's not a massive, 5-star, but with the guards that they lost to the NBA and to Europe and not getting Dent, that's significant. All these things adding up together here, lowers the ceiling of the Zags, where we have the Lope ceiling being raised. So I'm not ready to say that Grand Canyon's better than Gonzaga, but, I think they could certainly have an argument, and I'll talk about this team in a second, to be right there with Utah State. I know they're in separate conferences, but, I got news for you guys. During the year here, I'm gonna do like rankings for these 2 conferences. Okay. It's going to be a combine. So that'll be fun just to fire people up and get some of them ticked off. So, I realize largely I'm too nice most of the time, and I'm afraid to tick some people off, but I don't, enough of that. So we're going to combine and do like a top 10 of the conferences. And so if I would do that right now, I'd have to dig deeper and think about who I'd have it 2 between GCU and Utah State. Okay. 2, 3. All right. Pizza Man says, going back to the Xavier thing, he'll own a condo overlooking the pit in 2 years. Very good pizza. That's sure. I believe it. Larry says GCU on paper is the number 2 G6 team and closer to Zags than people think. I mean, look, there's no doubt, Larry, they could be. And Larry, I do think you were one of the first ones that agreed that the Lobos are no longer, or weren't, or are not the favorite in the Mountain West. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. Okay, you'll have a chance to play them twice and play them in a conference tournament maybe and win one of those 2 titles, or win them both, and you'll have a chance, right? I mean, GCU doesn't start with a 4-point lead in the game when you play them because they're picked first. They don't start 1-0 in conference play because they're picked first. It's just for talking points. Okay, use it as motivation if you're Olin and the Lobos, whatever. Okay. I don't know who the rest of, maybe they're the second best G6 team. I'd have to really, look and see. We're probably a month away from getting Ken Palm or whatever. I'd have to dig into some of those and see who else is out there. I'm sure they're better than Memphis. Again, I have them probably right there right now with Utah State. Yes, I would agree with that, Larry. All right. Coaching advantage to UNM over GCU. Olin has proved that he can do less with more. Not that it was a bad coaching job by Bryce Drew last year, but it wasn't his best. Okay. He had some very good wins, but some puzzling losses. All right. He's made the tournament 4 times. He's won a game in a 5-12 upset. Olin didn't quite do that. Did make it at UCSD. Didn't make it last year. So slight coaching advantage right now to Olin, but we'll see how it goes this year, right? We'll see. Okay. So, yeah, again, I'll have to dig into the rest of the non-Power Fives and see who else I would have above GCU aside from Gonzaga and possibly Utah State. Okay. Maybe I should look. Oh, St. Louis. Probably St. Louis, I guess. They will play this year, in fact. So there you go. You want to be the second best or third best G6 team. Go beat St. Louis. They got smoked by them last year on the road. This year, it will be a neutral site game, I believe, in the Acrisure. So St. Louis, because Lunardi did have 2 A-10 teams. I didn't even look to see. I'm assuming the second one was VCU. I don't know who they brought in, but I would not think VCU is better than Grand Canyon right now. I would not. Do not. But yeah, okay. Mark says VC. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be better than Grand Canyon. I could be wrong. I'll have to check their roster, see who they brought. Pizza Man says hoops only schools will be heavy favorites in respective conferences. Yeah, well, no coincidence. That's what you get right there with Grand Canyon and Mount West, Gonzaga in the Pac-12. Okay, then a day later, we got UNLV making some waves, bringing in AJ Storr. Now, let's talk about the good with AJ Storr. Very talented player, clearly. Very talented player. And he seems like he would be a Pastner type of player, okay? Less of a leash, let's just say, right? More freedom to go play and showcase your talents, okay? That's the plus. The negative is that literally, and this is not hyperbole, this is literally the dude's 9th team in 9 years. Going back to his freshman year of high school, right? 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 5 years of college, okay? 9 years of hoops. He's played for 9 different teams. Like that, you got to try hard to do that, man. Like you have to try really hard to do that. I don't know any of the stuff about his high schools. I think his college journey, I know he was at Wisconsin. I think he started at St. John's. I think there was a Wisconsin in there. I think there was a Kansas in there. And I think he was at Ole Miss this year, right? And now UNLV. I think that was the order. St. John's, Wisconsin, Kansas, Ole Miss, and now UNLV. I'm pretty sure the St. John's was before Pitino was there. I'm pretty sure. Wisconsin, I think he did okay there. I don't remember. Did not work out at Kansas. No surprise, because he did not have a long leash with Bill Self. Okay? Self doesn't tolerate that. He can put his foot down and say, you're going to play my way or you're not going to play. Right? He is 10 AJ Storrs. He doesn't need AJ Storr's attitude. Okay. And then Storr went to Ole Miss this year. Now the problem is, the other downside is that I mentioned this with Henley, and I would trust Henley a heck of a lot more than Storr with this, is that he's possibly like a locker room disruptor, or let's just say he's probably not the quintessential teammate. Okay. Like 9 teams in 9 years. He clearly cares zero about the name on the front of the jersey, right? The kids, what do the kids do that today? They do this, right? He clearly cares zero about the name on the front of the jersey where it says the school name. He could give 2 damns about that. Okay. So, that's not a great thing, right? It's not, I don't know if that's a guy that I want to go into a foxhole with when the going gets tough. Okay. Because he's looking for his next paycheck. All right. And he's not alone. We got plenty of mercenaries out there, football, basketball, whatever. But, it leads to some questions, right? I mean, are there going to be chemistry issues? Are there going to be locker room issues? So this is stuff that Pastner's going to have to get a hold of. But this is, look, there's a reason that there weren't other power fours banging on AJ Storr's door. Okay. Like UNLV will be happy to take him because he's a talented guy. I mean, if he can give close to what Gibbs Lawhorn gave the Rebels and Pastner last year, you'd take that in a heartbeat. But I'd be stunned if he doesn't cost them a game or two, or let's just say this. I shouldn't say cost them a game or two. I will say that I'll be stunned if there's not a game or two this year where I come on here after the game, after a game night, and I'm kind of like questioning Storr's decision-making or shot selection or basketball IQ or something along those lines. Okay. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope UNLV wins every non-conference game they play. Okay. But I mean, I think it's fair for me to be a little skeptical right now. Okay. Larry, classic UNLV to bring in a Storr type of player. Yeah. I mean, sure. It's like the Nas Cunningham guy last year a little bit. I mean, he didn't have the pedigree. Storr's put up good numbers. There's no doubt. But Ole Miss went from being a tournament, and I'm not saying this is all AJ Storr's fault. Okay. AJ shouldn't have a problem adjusting, Mark says. I hope you're right, Mark. Okay. I know that Ole Miss didn't make the tournament last year, and they were an NCAA tournament team the years before that. Didn't make the tournament last year. Okay. Again, I'm not saying that's all AJ Storr's fault. I wasn't paying attention to a lot of Ole Miss basketball. He did send them on a crazy run in the SEC tournament that almost stole a bid, but it didn't happen. We'll see. Okay, talented guy. And again, I think this is the type of thing you have to do if you're UNLV because, let's try it. What do you have to lose, right? And maybe he'll win a couple games for you. He might lose a game for you, but he might win a couple for you. And I guess that's a trade-off that Pastner's willing to make, and we'll see how it goes. All right, couple more here. Boise brought in a point guard, Lamar Washington, Georgia Tech guy. And again, I'll be honest, these are the programs, the Georgia Techs, I don't really get eyes on them a lot, okay? For one thing, they're not on a ton. They've been a bad team in the ACC for the last few years. They just made a coaching change. They have a good new coach right now, and Lamar Washington will not be there. He put up pretty decent numbers last year for a point guard across the board as far as points, rebounds, and assists. I know nothing about him in terms of being a leader, a true point guard, a good locker room guy, a good chemistry guy, a winner. I know none of that, okay? He wasn't in a very good program. They're under-resourced in the ACC with the giants in that conference, Duke, UNC, Louisville, Miami. I'm sure I'm missing a couple others, but they've just fallen way behind. It's an academic school. I'm not at quite the level of Northwestern, Stanford, Vanderbilt, Duke, etc., but it's a pretty good academic school, and they just aren't funded NIL-wise, and so they've fallen way behind. So, again, I'm not saying it's his fault, but I don't know if he's a winner or not. We'll see, okay? Now, I do not know if this is kind of a replacement for Rogers, Ty Rogers, who was injured. BJ and I talked about that with Leon and just ourselves a couple months ago. Unfortunate, maybe back in January. We'll see. Rogers was more of a combo. This guy seems like a true point. Maybe it speaks to the fact that Leon is not sold on his current point guards, NATO, whoever, and that wouldn't be the most surprising thing to me. Am I missing somebody? I guess Bowie, who's back, Bohm. I may not say that name right. He's got solid stuff at every other position. We've talked about this. They got good size. They got guys who, transfers he brought in that are good players that I think are going to show well. They're just unproven at the point. And so this might be Leon and his staff talking after practices in July and saying, I'm worried about NATO and what, him not being up to where we thought. This is just me theorizing, by the way. Is Wheeler Thomas a point, though, Michael? I thought he was more like a two guard, like a scoring guard. Is he a point? Like, I'm excited for DWT. I figured he was more of like a scoring guard. But regardless, if he's a point, then I don't know what, Leon's got. Then, NATO's hardly going to play it all then unless you're moving him to the 2. And I don't think he shoots the ball well enough, right? If you're not handling the ball and you're out on the floor as a guard, you got to be able to shoot it. And if you're not handling it and you can't shoot it, what are we doing here, right? This is why you didn't bring RJ Keene back, because he's out there and he can't shoot it and he can't handle it. Yeah, great that he plays defense. And I agree, NATO's a disruptor defensively. But if, you need to be able to either shoot it or handle it. Okay. So I'm curious what Washington's role is going to be here, what some of the other guards that are already on the roster are going to do for Leon. But again, I'm still high on this team. I've said it several times. I expect this to be an old school, vintage Leon team that gets back to the old roots of Boise in the mid 20-teens and the early 2020s. Okay. And I think, what that gets them, I don't know. Does it get them close to the bubble? Hopefully. Does it get them in the tournament? I don't know. Does it get them a top 3 finish in the conference? Certainly not guaranteed. That's going to be difficult. But I think it'll be a better product and a better team than it was last year. Okay. All right. The last individual, and I guess the last guy is the latest one that I guess broke either yesterday or Friday night. There was some buzz about it Friday night, and that was Dallin Hall going to Utah State, completing their roster. And I guess I kind of knew because Coach Jacobson said it on here, but it's tough to keep track of all these teams and who has roster spots and who doesn't and all of that stuff. So they bring in Dallin Hall, who started his career. I think he played 2 years at BYU. Maybe it was 3. I don't even know. I think he did a mission early because I think he's 24, 25. Did a couple years at BYU. Couple good years at BYU, right? Here's a dude who started most games at BYU in the Big 12 a couple years ago. Okay. Maybe even as a freshman. I think he was now I think that was when BYU was in the West Coast Conference. I think he made all conference freshman, maybe. And then played and started while they were in the Big 12 2 years ago. And then he goes to Virginia this past season. Okay. And he starts, I think he was injured a couple games, but he started every game that he played. And this is a Virginia team that got a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. Okay. Wow. So DWT is running the point. Okay. Well, then I got to assume that Washington is a backup point guard. NATO then, either he's getting 0 minutes or he's going to be I don't know. Okay. Well, look, I trust Leon and the staff. I'm just spouting thoughts out here. Okay. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. So Virginia was a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament last year. Lost to Duke in the ACC championship game. They did lose in the second round to Tennessee, but they were a 3 seed. And Dallin Hall started every game and averaged, fair numbers. I don't know, 6-5-5 or 6-5-4, whatever. Look, he's not going to come in and score 17 points a game for you, but that's not really what Utah State needs. Okay. Is he going to be a knockdown sniper? Probably not. Okay. But he can handle it. Okay. I don't know what exactly, again, kind of like what I just talked about with Washington and Boise, not exactly sure of what Jacobson's plan for Hall is where his role is concerned, right? You brought in a guy that you were high on at point guard in Bates. You have Reiser, I think it's Reiser as your backup point guard. You have, guys like obviously Falslev, but I think Callahan was one. There was another guard that we talked about last week. They're all running together. Who else am I missing here from their roster? I can't even find where I have the damn stuff. But anyway, that's a fair amount of guards. Okay. So Hall is going to be a guy who is I will kind of compare him a little bit to Ethan Morton a couple years ago with Colorado State after he had come from Purdue and wasn't a big scorer, but he was an intangible guy, right? He's not going to draw a guy to lock him down. He's not looking to shoot much, and he doesn't care. He doesn't need to shoot much. He was well coached at Purdue. He came in, and he was a major factor down the stretch. One of the reasons why, Nick Clifford got hot and the Rams were unconscious in February and March. But Morton played his role, knew how to play, high basketball IQ, winning player. Comes from a good program, coached well with Matt Painter. Same thing with Hall. Coached well at BYU, moves to Virginia. Utah State fans well schooled in their head coach, Ryan Odom, last year. Going to be taught the game, know how to play, high IQ, make the winning play, don't care about scoring. Will he shoot it if he's open? Of course. If he misses one or two, is he going to keep looking to shoot? No. We can't say that about everybody, right? They keep looking to fire. Hall's not going to be like that. He'll be out there looking to do the things that Templin does inside. And Hall will do them on the perimeter for you. So I'd be excited about that. Again, as long as the chemistry isn't disrupted, you're bringing in a guy pretty late. You've had a lot of practices, a lot of team building and that stuff. And now you're bringing in a guy late into the process. But assuming that they're all on board and he fits in well, he seems like a team first guy. I think that's a great pickup for Jacobson and the Aggies. Okay. So good. Raises their ceiling a little bit. I think that the only other thing Wichita got a guy, and that matters because a couple of our schools, New Mexico and Boise, have them on their roster, have them on their non-conference schedule. And they brought back, I think their leading scorer was granted a 5th year, pretty solid player. And so there's a lot of buzz about Wichita, which is good. Of course, we want New Mexico and Boise to beat Wichita, but we want Wichita to win like every other game. So that becomes like a quad 2 for sure. And, I doubt they're going to be quad 1s. Although I can't remember where the New Mexico Wichita game is. The Boise Wichita game might be in Wichita. So if Boise goes to Wichita, that could very well be a quad 1 game. Okay. There's a lot of buzz about that Wichita team. I'd have to look and see where the New Mexico game is. You don't want Boise to win at all. Kite, man. Okay. Well, I think, that's fair if you're a Nevada or Utah State fan, I guess. Okay. Or New Mexico. I don't know. Anyway, I have to see where that Lobo game is against Wichita because it could be quad 1 if it's a roadie. Maybe they fall flat, but at worst it's going to be a quad 2. So I don't know, lots of stuff there. Okay, now that was a lot. I do not anticipate as much news next week, but of course I could be fooled. I probably won't have a 20-minute tangent on, remember my phrase for today, okay? It'll be like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, the word of the day. My phrase of the day, separation of sport and state, okay? So I probably won't have a 20-minute rant next week. We can get to some of these schedules. Because again, I want to talk about Nevada. We have not talked about Nevada on here in like 2.5 months. I mean, part of that is their own fault because they haven't really done anything and we couldn't, get their coach on. So, I feel a little bad, but, it is what it is. Okay. But I'm going to talk about their schedule. Who else do we have? We have GCU, Nevada, UNLV, and Wyoming have their complete schedules out. Utah State released their non-con, and we know that everybody in both of these conferences are playing everybody. So we kind of know Utah State's schedule. We just don't know the dates of the conference games. Also, we should be, and it wouldn't surprise me if we get schedule releases this week from either of the conferences. A lot of the conferences have already done it. It seems like odd timing that you would want to do it now as we're running up against football. Like, you're not going to wait until the middle of September. So I don't know why you didn't do it already, what you're waiting on. Okay. Clearly the Mountain West has theirs out because the 4 schools that I just said already fired them out. So we know you could kind of put some of those puzzle pieces together. We know when some of them are. That's 4 of your 10 teams. That's 40% of your conference schedule has already been leaked. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why don't you just release it? Right? Same thing with the Pac-12. What are you going to do? You want to bury it like once football's in the news? I don't get it, but whatever. So maybe we'll have some of that to talk about. I'm sure they'll have more lawsuits and whatever else to talk about. So that's that. Okay, hour 15. I knew I would enjoy this one. I talked for a long time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Let's do one more round of shout outs for our sponsors. Sun Cruiser, get yourself some iced tea, vodka flavored stuff. I got the lemonade one right here. We got multiple flavors in the stores, 6 packs, 8 packs, 4 packs, whatever packs. Okay, get them, store them in the freezer, refrigerator, whatever. Get yourself some Sun Cruiser. Circa Sports up there on the top left. Go visit Circa if you're out in Vegas for football, for the pool, mobile betting, Survivor contest, whatever. Check out Circa Sports. And please, if you have not done so, subscribe. Another Night Out West on YouTube, www.youtube.com/@AnotherNightOutWest. Get a few subscriptions up there this week. The Pizza Man says it. Shout out to the sponsors. Appreciate them very much. I'm going to try and get another sponsor once we get into the fall here for our season. That's my goal. Let's try and get another sponsor on here. Okay. Appreciate you guys being here. Those that weighed in with some comments, questions, and other thoughts. Appreciate you guys being here. Those that did not comment, that have just been watching. Those of you that watched during the week, also appreciate you. Spread the word. Tell a friend. Tell someone else to get listening, to get watching. We'll be back next Sunday, same bat time, same bat channel, to wrap up the month of August. And we'll catch you next time on another Night Out West. See ya.